Hey everybody. So some of you may not know me. I am a trans guy, and today I just want to dive into a little bit of Ben Shapiro because I think he is just one of the epitomes of postmodernism, right? You know, he's like the song. Ben Shapiro's got it going on, something like that. I don't know. I'm just saying. Like, this guy clearly he knows what he's talking about, right? He's experienced whole sort of, I don't know. What has he experienced? Has he experienced anything in life? Is he even human? Well, let's find out. Let's see if he can debunk me as a person. I think he can. I think he totally can. Yeah, let's do it.
You are about to watch an episode of my awesome new series, Debunked.
I'm about to watch it. Yeah. This is the greatest day of my life, bro. 4 seconds in. I can't wait. I am witnessing history.
I do say so myself. Seriously, we are very proud of this show. Every episode, I dismantle and debunk a common leftist myth in 15 minutes or less. Today on Debunked, we're going to discuss a very common question. Can a man be a woman?
It's a very broad question. I don't know. Can a man be a woman? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think a man can be a man and a woman could be a woman. Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. Yeah. Maybe that makes sense to you too, Ben. Like, I don't know. It's a weird question. Can a man be a woman? No, I think if you're a man, then you probably identify as a man. And if you're a woman, then, well, you probably identify as a woman. I think that's typically how it works, Ben. But I don't know. That's just my guess. That's my 2 cents. But, who am I? You probably don't give a dime.
Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
They're always like, "Do you think minors are capable?" That is your biggest defense. Are minors capable of this? Well, I mean, my opinion, doesn't matter. But I feel like minors should be allowed to get puberty blockers. That should be on the table for them, right? Unwanted changes. Maybe they truly are transgender and would like to prevent things from happening. That would save money, emotional inabilities. It would really prevent a lot of things from taking over and happening. Should they be allowed to do that without parental consent? I think so. Now, surgeries, I'm like, that's a bit of a stretch, That's a bit of a stretch. But I certainly do believe they have free will and the power to think. Yes, I do. Should the parents come between them in that? No, I don't think so. I think this should be in legislation. Just me. What does this person think? Let's see.
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field.
The specific question was about minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia?
All right. Again, my 2 cents. I think puberty blockers are just fine. I think at a certain age, if you've been on puberty blockers or whatever, at a certain age, if you decided, I want this, you've only been on this planet for like 16 years. What the fuck do you know? You can't desire things. Yeah, you're right, Mom. I don't know what I want to eat when I wake up. You gonna make that decision for me too? Like, they act like children can't make decisions. Children can't make decisions, right? I mean, you gotta be sort of older, right? Not necessarily old, right? I believe you can still be in parental guardianship and decide for yourself. And I know they all use the argument, well, my 3-year-old boy wants to be a robot. Tell him he could be a girl the next day. Well, that's a bit of a different thing because I don't know about you, but once I passed the age of like 4, I've decided I didn't want to be a horse. But I still knew that I was a boy. I'm not a horse. I don't identify as a horse. It didn't stick with. I mean, it's illusion. It's delusion at that. Like, you're deluding your kids. You're telling them, oh, you feel this way. Well, you can't be how you feel. You should just be miserable. That's what you should be. I mean, I didn't know I could be the self-embodiment of being miserable, but I guess I can. No, you can't be a horse, but you can be literal depression. That's fine. That's what it feels like. They're like, that's fine. You could be a mental illness, but you can't be anything else, alright? Just be depressed your whole life.
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex...
The answer, clearly, is yes, as Levine even told a former Trump administration official. Just pause on that for a moment and think about how crazy that is.
Oh yes, we're in ideology now. I can't even get a minute through the fucking video. We just...
Now, in the past few years, you've heard a lot of statements that sound like we must not raise boys as boys and girls as girls because we just can't be sure that kids actually have the sex assigned to them at birth. You've heard that some people are men in women's bodies or women in men's bodies. You may even have heard that if you're a straight dude and you don't want to have sex with a trans woman, meaning a biological male, this makes you gay.
If you're a man that doesn't want to have sex with a straight woman, one that is biologically male, then this makes you gay. Did I hear that right? I'm convinced I didn't hear that right. I'm going to rewind that just a little bit.
Or women in men's bodies. You may even have heard that if you're a straight dude and you don't want to have sex with a trans woman, meaning a biological male, this makes you gay.
Okay, if you're a straight man that doesn't want to have sex with a trans woman, a biological dude, then this makes you gay. How in the world? What kind of mental gymnastics do you have to do to reach that conclusion? Like, you would think Ben Shapiro would be fit, and he ain't that fit. Like, you over here just flexing on him. What are you doing that for? Don't make any sense, bro. But okay, we'll go with it. Modern day transphobia. This is what this is.
This is insane patent nonsense.
We're insane. Okay.
Males and females reproduce with one another in the human species.
That's a fair observation, Ben. I've never noticed that. Also, take this into consideration. They also sort of, in some ways or not, reproduce with each other in other species. Yeah, it's a weird fact, I mean, that is a fact. Another fact is that transgender people exist in society. That is a fact. Due to it being a fact, one might think that, maybe there's some underlying science to it. I mean, you're a man of facts, right? Maybe you'd understand that this sort of manifestation usually means something. It wouldn't be here if it didn't.
On this for quite a while. The simple reality is that the human species is sexually dimorphic. Sex is binary. we come in two brands, male and female.
I agree. I agree. And some of you might think, wow, that's weird. I agree because sex is binary. However, gender is not. Gender is on a spectrum. Sex, yeah. You're born male or female. Now, this is a phenotypical expression, meaning this is what you see on the outside, right? Yeah, sometimes your genetics dictate it. Sometimes they don't, right? Biology is not as simple as it seems. People say, simple biology. If biology were simple, then people wouldn't continue to study it. Now, would they? They would. So, it's not necessarily all up to chromosomes, right? I can agree. Most of the time, you can typically say this person is blah 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 sex, right? Okay, we can agree on that. But if your sex does not match your gender expression, then you are transgender, typically. Maybe not always, but typically. And I just don't understand how he doesn't understand this. I mean, I'm not a genius, but I'm not a knuckle-dragging Neanderthal either. But let's see what else he could do. 2 minutes. How long can we last with this man?
Typically, those who have the XY chromosomes are male. Those who have XX chromosomes are female. Males and females differ.
Okay. I'll give you that. Typically, yeah, I'll give you that.
They differ in size and shape, and musculature, brain function. As neuroscientist Steven Pinker says, differences between the sexes are part of the human condition.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I do agree that sometimes in a normative case, the sexes do have differences that, well, I wouldn't say different. I'd call them nuances, right? There's small differences, and in transgender people, those differences are even slimmer than their preferred gender identity, or whatever you want to call it. Those are typically closer. Like, a male brain is typically close to that of a trans man. A female brain is typically close to that of a trans woman. If you can't see the connections in these things, then, like, how can you claim to have kind regards to science? Like, really, how can you? Like, when you deny things that happen that support our claims, but then take things that maybe aren't that scientific to just destroy our claims. That doesn't make any sense, right? When the science is for you, it's all good. When it's for us, you might as well just throw it.
There are certainly people who have anomalous genetic conditions, like Klinefelter syndrome, in which...
Okay. So now he's getting into the syndromes. Klinefelter syndrome. Basically, I think that's XXY. It's not the same, so to bring up anomalies into transgender ideology is kind of dumb. It's a different thing, right? Necessarily. And it actually just supports the transgender claim. Most of the time, you can be born and you can look like a girl, but you don't always necessarily feel like a girl, and that's kind of what Klinefelter syndrome shows. It shows that gender is on a spectrum. Now, I want to see what twisted way he makes us think of this, but I don't know. Let's see.
A person has two X chromosomes and a Y chromosome, and in whom breast development looks female while male genitalia are present. Overall, disorders of sexual development affect 1 in every 5,000 births. Now, the presence of abnormal development does not mean that sex is a spectrum. To suggest otherwise, it would be the same.
Nobody said that, Ben. Ben. Nobody said that sex was a spectrum. Now, we said gender was a spectrum. Two different words, they describe different things. People don't really understand this, and then when you point it out, they poke fun at you for just realizing it, right? Sex is what you were born as. It's just what you are. That necessarily isn't binary either. That is a spectrum, right? You could be born with a myriad of different mutations that cause you to phenologically appear different, and maybe genotypically too. But that doesn't matter, right? Because that's not what we're saying. We're not saying that sex is a spectrum. We're saying that the way that you experience your own sex is a spectrum. You might be a female, but you might have every experience of being a male. You might be a male, but you have every experience of being a female. It's what you experience, and that is really defined by every social aspect. If there was no social construction, there would probably be no gender spectrum. If we weren't social animals, there would probably be no gender spectrum. But this is the reality that we live in. So drawing it back, there's a gender spectrum, and there's a semi-sexual spectrum. I wouldn't say it's there, but I kind of would at the same time. So, to say that it's a sex spectrum is wrong. To say it's a sex spectrum and then pull up a gender spectrum depiction is even more wrong. Like, Ben, do your knuckles hurt? Are you dragging them around that much? Like, come on.
Same thing as saying that because one child every few thousand is born with 3 toes, this means that the number of toes in the human being is a spectrum.
Really? I mean, it could be a spectrum. Lots of things are spectrum. Spectrums just show, well, I mean, biological spectrums show that there's some sort of genetic variance between things. Okay, you could be born with 1 toe. The probability of that would be slightly slimmer than being born with 2 toes, because the normative is being born with 5 toes. But differently, you could be born with 6 toes. I mean, it would be a spectrum. Now, you would call it not normal, because that's just the type of person that you are. However, what is normal anyways? Is average normal? Is that what we're going by? Any sort of difference and you can get hate crimed. Is that what it is? All the people with fucking 2 toes out there, you better watch your back. I'm coming for you. I don't want you to have rights, son. Like, really? That doesn't make any sense. But okay, let's keep going. What you got, Ben? What you got?
Or that a person with 3 toes might actually be a sloth human, a 3-toed sloth human.
A 3-toed
All reproduction is rooted in the presence of sexual dimorphism. To pretend otherwise is biologically nonsensical. That's why, to end a conversation on transgenderism, just ask for a simple, non-self-referential definition of the terms man and woman. When I say non-self-referential, I mean you can't say, I feel like a woman, therefore I am a woman. For advocates of biology,
I got you, bro. I'm an advocate of biology, alright? I'm gonna do it. Okay. A non-self-referential definition of a man and a woman. Okay. A woman would typically have long hair, maybe wear feminine clothes and like dresses and stuff. Maybe she wears high heels. Maybe she has a nice bosom. Maybe she doesn't. Genetic variance is a real thing. A man, maybe he's very slender. Maybe he's not, though. You know, got strong facial features, but not necessarily. There's men with very feminine features. Well, maybe he's wearing a tie. Maybe he's got pomade in his hair. There's a lot of different things that would constitute for how a man would look and how a woman would look. And for us to determine what a man or a woman is, we can't do without seeing them. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, I can tell a man from a woman, so I would know who's trans. I mean, that might be right in some cases, right? But definitely not all of them. And I know a lot of people that would just, I would say, fool you, but they're true to themselves. So, but you wouldn't know the difference. So, to say that is just kind of, as Ben would say, nonsensical.
The answer for what is woman or what is man is simple. You can look at chromosomes, SRY genes.
I mean, sometimes you can, but you know, I don't go out for coffee and look at my friend's chromosomes. I don't go for a job interview and get my chromosomes looked at. I don't do anything and get my chromosomes looked at. So how am I supposed to know? I've been fooled by everyone. The system is fooling me. You get your chromosomes looked, your SRY gene. Alright, so now we're at chromosomes as a whole to looking at individual genes. Alright, 23andMe, yo, hit me up. You know, daily basis type thing. I need everybody to see my chromosomes type shit. It doesn't make sense to anybody. Why would you go through that much work to figure out if the person's sex, which you don't identify them as, is male or female? That doesn't make any sense. But okay, yeah, we'll go with this. Let's say you could look at somebody's chromosomes on just a daily basis, right? You know, maybe just like take their blood sample and put it in your pocket chromosome reader. Ah, you're a male, you're a female. Ah, okay.
Reproductive systems, verifiable answers to the question.
Reproductive systems. That one, you just go around looking at people's reproductive systems, you will find out real quick that society has a place for you. That place is on a nice long list of sex offenders and behind bars. You can't just go around looking at people's reproductive systems. That is illegal. I don't know how you plan on doing that, because that is illegal. Anyways, what else, Ben? Any sort of phenotypical expressions that you like to look at, or is it all just genotypes? Because like looking at people's genes and pulling down their pants, those aren't really ethically acceptable to do in public. But let's see what you got, bro.
For advocates of the position that some biological men are women, or vice versa, there is no standard that can be applied. A man can become a woman or a woman a man at any time without any stable definition of man or woman whatsoever. So according to our pseudo-medical activists, gender identity.
Pseudo-medical activists. Now we're calling them pseudo-medical activists. Oh, you know that thing you do? You know that thing you do sticking up for trans people? It's fake medicine, and you know it. Why are you an activist for this? That doesn't make any sense. The words that come out of his mouth, like he's clearly he's very sophisticated when it comes to bending rhetoric and getting people to agree with him. That is his strong suit. His weak suit is that nobody likes him And the people that do like him also have the false ideologies that he has. I think we're setting a great standard for our nation. And we need to continue listening to this guy because he is so amazing.
Is completely separate from sex. The separation between gender and sex relies on a simple fallacy, that gender is entirely socially constructed and thus separate from biology. Gender, in this iteration...
That's the first smart thing I've heard him say. And I wouldn't say it's separated from biology either, so... But, I mean, he's getting the hang of it, right? He's getting the general idea that it's separate from sex. It's not sex, it's gender. Okay, Ben, what else you got, bro?
would be all the various feminine qualities that adhere to womanhood, or the masculine qualities that adhere to being a male. According to these folks, gender and sex are completely different. Right? All of those gendered notions of femininity, they're completely separate from being a biological female. This Cartesian notion that you can be a woman in a man's body, a soul in the machine, because your gender is separate from your sex, is utterly unsupportable at any level. Everyone understands there are some attributes that are generally considered more masculine. Chopping wood, being dumb.
I'm whizzing with the door open, and I love it.
And some that are considered more feminine. Being caring, being nice, right? These are distinctions that do appear in virtually all cultures. Some of that is undoubtedly biologically oriented, and some is undoubtedly social construction. But it is simply ridiculous to suggest that if a boy is effeminate, he's actually a girl. Or that if a girl is masculine, she might actually be a boy. But this is what gender theorists argue.
This is not what gender theorists argue. Gender theorists argue that sometimes your sex doesn't match how your mind perceives yourself. Now, I don't know why you think it's okay to just compare that to people who have feminine characteristics and people who have masculine characteristics. Right? I could be really strong. Right? I could be a really strong female. That doesn't make me a male. Or we could talk social characteristics. I could be a really aggressive female. That doesn't make me a male. That's not the argument that is being made. So don't get it misconstrued, because it's just not like that. He's not picking up what society is putting down.
The origins of the gender identity movement lie with a professor of medical psychology at Johns Hopkins in the 1960s. His name was John Money. After twin boys were born, and after a botched circumcision destroyed one boy's penis, that boy was raised as a girl. By the time that boy was a teenager, the boy felt extraordinary discomfort because he was biologically male, and his parents told him the truth.
You know, that's funny, because that kind of supports that gender is on a spectrum. He was biologically male. You tried to raise him as a female. His mind did not perceive himself as a female. Therefore, he was dysphoric about being a female. It did not match what he perceived himself as. I mean, you could say that he was male, so that's why. But he just so happened to have a gender expression that lined up with his biological sex. That is what that means. I don't know how that's hard to follow. I really don't.
Both twins ended up killing themselves in their mid-30s. That didn't stop John Money from founding the Johns Hopkins Gender Identity Clinic in 1965. His theory was children could identify as members of the opposite sex, and that radical surgery was the proper solution. That inside, these kids were members of the opposite sex in reality, and that surgery would merely make their bodies align with their identity. Money claims that, quote, the gender identity gate is open at birth for a normal child, no less than for one born with unfinished sex organs, and would stay that way for at least a year. So in other words, you could have a full biological boy with finished sex organs, and his gender identity was still open. Brains and bodies were considered in direct opposition, completely separate from one another. Radical feminists, like Judith Butler, began arguing that all gender was socially constructed, and that therefore, all inequalities in outcome between men and women could be laid at the feet of an evil, sexist society. If gender is a meaningless social construct created by society, why does it matter more than sex, which is actual real biology? And why is gender more real than biology itself? Why would anyone need to change his or her body in order to align with gender, a social construction, when gender and sex are completely separate in the first place?
I mean, you identify as a certain gender, you feel that way, you see yourself in that way in your mind. Your body isn't that way. Your mind is the all-powerful thing here. And so you feel the need to be that vision. That makes sense, right? You feel the need to transform into what you know you are. I mean, I don't get what that has to do with, like, being a societal construct. It is. That's just a fact. It doesn't mean you can't change it. Okay.
Gender dysphoria, which is what we're talking about here, is a serious and tragic disorder. It is also extremely rare. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5th edition, those who had received a diagnosis of gender identity disorder or transsexualism and were seeking hormone treatment and or surgery represented just 0.005 to 0.014% for males and 0.002 to 0.003% for females. Those stats are now rising dramatically.
We have that big announcement from an Oscar-nominated actor announcing he is transgender. Elliot Page came out publicly with a post about his identity.
And in that post, now liked nearly 2.5 million times. The more I hold myself close and fully embrace who I am, the more I dream, the more my heart grows, and the more I thrive. And guys, that's what we love to see.
Yes, he is going to help so many. Janae, thank you so much.
People suffering from gender dysphoria, which, in its non-politicized definition, means the persistent belief that you are a member of the opposite sex, have a tragically high suicidal ideation and depression rate.
It's not a belief that you're a member of the opposite sex. It's just not a belief of that. It is a knowing that you identify with the same gender characteristics as the opposite sex. And you would like to make your sex more align with the phenotypical expression of the opposite sex due to your gender expression. It's like this: gender expression, and then sex characteristics. You want to make these align with each other so that there's no conflict. Otherwise, there's just a conflict between the two. Okay, Ben, okay. You're the transgender ideology god, I guess.
That suicidal ideation rate remains tragically high after surgical and hormonal treatment.
Okay, show me the numbers. Where are the numbers at? I gotta see these numbers, bro. You're a man of science. You just saying this, or you spitting facts, dog? Because I don't see it. It doesn't seem to be a fact.
Longitudinal studies that are good just do not exist on the efficacy of these measures.
Oh, yes. Yes, why would a longitudinal study about this thing that you just brought up, that you apparently know about, exist? Why would it exist? So how did you make this conclusion if no study exists? and you can't provide evidence of this. Is there a specific reason why you've just catfished me into this belief?
And the mental health problems associated with gender dysphoria remain extremely damaging, even in particularly accepting societies. But suffering from a mental disorder does not change your underlying sex, any more than believing that you are Napoleon Bonaparte makes you Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yes, I wake up every day thinking I'm Napoleon Bonaparte. In fact, I wake up every day thinking I am a completely different person. I'm a fire truck. It's just not the same. You know who you are. And you know how you feel. So how can other people begin to understand that and dictate it? I mean, I don't want to be that person, but if Ben has a kid that's in the LGBTQ, I pray for them. Somebody's gonna have to, because, whew, they're gonna have the time of their lives with him.
Transgender activists make an objective claim about reality, based on subjective internal feelings. That's unsustainable. What's more, transgender activists demand that you abandon reason, biology, privacy, even the ability to raise your kids in concert with reality in favor of a delusional quasi-religious worldview in which gender and sex are completely segregated and a boy can be a girl and a girl a boy.
Did he just say a religious worldview? Are we a religion now? Are we a religion? That's why he opposes us. Oh. I failed to understand that part. But we're a religion. I'm just now hearing about this. Do we have, like, any sort of priests? Do we have prophets and stuff? Do we... How are we spreading the religion? Because I need to be filled in on this, because I didn't know we were doing this.
Now, none of this means that anybody suffering from gender dysphoria ought to be mistreated. Anybody with any sort of disorder ought to be treated with nothing but sympathy and care. But this does mean that a society that seeks to propagandize to children that they can switch their gender is both lying to kids and doing them psychological harm in the process. Unfortunately, that's exactly what our society is now teaching kids in public schools. Anti-biological nonsense, including the lie that you might just be a different gender with different pronouns. And it's not just that. With the new Equality Act,
the motion is adopted.
The Biden administration and the Democratic Party are seeking to promote the idea that any institution that doesn't mimic these lies has to be destroyed. Religious institutions are not exempted from federal regulations that demand that men who identify as women be treated as women. And this is true in sports, in restrooms. Ironically, feminists who sought to protect women from men have now seen female spaces completely destroyed because they can't define female and male properly. Most shockingly, we're now a society that demands that parents hand over their kids to the tender mercies of political actors masquerading as medical specialists. If you have a 12-year-old at school with a headache, the school nurse cannot prescribe to them Tylenol without calling you first. But we now have officials in states and in the federal government suggesting that if a 12-year-old says that she is a boy, the school should be able to prescribe puberty blockers without calling a parent.
I mean, have we not seen how parents are? Parents aren't gonna agree. Parents were born in a completely different generation as us, and they're just not gonna understand it. They're not gonna get it. In fact, they're gonna be against it. They're gonna be like, "Oh, you'll grow out of it. It's just a phase." When in reality, if you're experiencing this, like, after the age of 8, is it really just a phase? I mean, I know people have their little phases where, like, you're in a tomboy phase or whatever, you like to play with dolls, like, it just means nothing at a certain age. But if you carry that with you, and nobody cares, and nobody even attempts to help you resolve it, that literally is child abuse. If somebody comes to you, a child, let's say they're like, I don't know, 9 or something, they say how they feel, and you disregard them, you are just promoting depression in your child. Your child's not gonna be happy. They might, they might start a revolution against you. Whoa, freedom! Let freedom ring! And then they go and get a nose ring and stuff. That's why this kind of stuff happens. It's just like any government. You've got the parents, they're the oppressor, and children are typically the oppressed. You can't believe them and stuff. It's just, it's nonsense. It's like children don't have brains or something. They can think. Yeah, they might not make the best decisions in the world, but you grow and you learn. So I don't know. We just act like children are so helpless. I mean, to a certain extent they are, but they're not completely.
That is a sick society. In the end, a man claiming to be a woman is making an unsustainable claim. He can't even know what it is like to be a woman because he is not one. A man with surgeries and hormone treatment does not become a woman, nor does a man who simply declares himself a woman. All of this is insane propaganda that is being propagated for political purposes. So, no, a man cannot become a woman or a woman a man.
Dang it, I feel totally debunked right now. I feel like my entire argument has just been completely slaughtered. Ben, you got me. You win, bro. You made so many claims and you backed them with supported evidence. Oh wait, you didn't. The only statistical thing that you said you couldn't even provide information for. So, I mean, if you want to talk it out with me, I'm willing to talk with you, bro. But, I mean, in all seriousness, if you're going to come to the table and you're going to pick a fight, you got to bring something with you. You can't just bring subjectiveness with you and expect people to listen. People will listen to you, but they're people with the same views. Objectively speaking. So, I mean, if you want to hit me up and we hash it out, we hash it out. I'm not into that political propaganda that the right is forcing down our throats either. So, we have different views, but I take it as you're mature, I'm mature. Hit me up, dawg. Hey guys, if you enjoyed me rebuttaling Ben Shapiro, uh please feel free to subscribe and like the video. If you want to see any more content, please comment what you would like to see. Um, until next time.